Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kerry Ascione. Think of me as your realtor for the next little under an hour, and I'm joined by my trusted lending partner, David Mizrahi. Too many great buyers sit on the sidelines not because they can't buy, but because the process feels confusing or they've already had a rough first try. If words like affordability, bidding wars, or overpaying make you hesitate, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise, how to dial in your numbers, shop smart with real data, and work with your agent to present strong, competitive offers without overpaying. By the end, you'll have clarity, a timeline, and next steps. And if you decide to move forward, we'd be honored to guide you. David's going to kick us off with the financing side, and I'll be back at the end with a quick wrap up and a really nice offer for everyone who makes it to the end. See you there.
So one of the biggest benefits to owning a home, which people commonly forget about, is the tax benefits. When owning a home, you get to write off your interest, your taxes, and your insurance every single month. So that means when you file your tax returns, you're able to write off all of those expenses, which equates to a much larger tax refund, which could help you pay your mortgage. Now, also at the same time, while you're owning a home, the value of your home is appreciating. So you're getting tax benefits at the same time as you're building equity, you're building net worth for yourself and your future. Another benefit of home ownership versus renting is stability. When you own a home, your mortgage payments are fixed. When you're renting a home, your landlord has the ability to raise your rent year over year. Why? The price of their home is going up, their insurance is going up, their taxes possibly could be going up, which equates to them charging you more. So the key takeaways here from owning a home is tax benefits and stability. So people always ask me, Dave, when is the right time to buy a home? And I always say the same answer. The right time to buy a home is whenever you could afford a mortgage payment and qualify for a mortgage. Why? Because the longer you wait, the more expensive the homes generally get. People usually wait for two things to purchase a home. Number one, they're waiting for the interest rates to go down. Number two, they're waiting to save up more money. But here's the thing, while you're waiting for the interest rates to go down, so many other people are waiting for it as well. Now, that will create more offers on a home, which will create bidding wars, which will create higher prices. Even though you're getting a lower interest rate with a higher purchase price, it's going to create a higher mortgage payment. So that would be a negative, even though I could understand the logic behind it. Unfortunately, it will hurt you in the future. The other thing that people usually wait for is they're waiting to save up more money. If you already have enough money to purchase a home, it's usually the right time to buy. Why? Because unfortunately, while you're saving more money, the house is going to appreciate, which is going to cost you more in the future. So while you're saving money, the best thing is to own the home, because while the house is appreciating, you'll be able to take advantage by refinancing when the rates come down and using that equity to get a lower payment, as well as the better market. So I understand why you would wait for those two factors. My rule of thumb is to buy a home whenever you find the right property and whenever you could afford the mortgage payment. So in short, a good time to buy is when you're ready. Let's talk about down payment assistance and low down payments. One of the benefits of owning a home in New Jersey is the state of New Jersey has grants. Those grants could be $10,000 to $15,000 depending on the county you purchase in. And also, if you are a first-generation buyer, which means you're the first person in your family to purchase a home, then you can get an extra $7,000. So the grant goes from $10,000 to $15,000 to $17,000 to $22,000 at closing. When using the down payment assistance, sometimes it covers your entire down payment, so all you'll need to cover is just your closing cost. And also, if you are a veteran, first off, thank you for your service. Second of all, you are entitled to put down 0%. So if that house is $600,000, all you have to put down is the closing cost, since there is no down payment. And viewers, if any of you have any questions or want to go over the down payment assistance or any of the low down payment programs, feel free to reach out to myself or Kerry. We're available for you all the time. So one of the biggest factors in qualifying for a mortgage is credit. Credit is going to be responsible for a few things for you. Number one, if you even qualify for a mortgage. Number two, which program you qualify for. Number three, what your interest rate's going to be. Number four, if you're getting a conventional loan and putting down less than 20%, what your PMI interest rate is going to be. And number five, sometimes your insurance company could ask for a copy of your credit report, so it could affect your insurance payment as well. A few of the biggest factors in your credit scores are how you make your payments. Of course, if you make your payments on time, scores will go up. If you make your payments not on time, the scores will go down. But one thing that everyone forgets to look at, which is one of the biggest factors in your credit scores, the percentage of what you owe divided by your limit on your credit cards. So for argument's sake, if you owe $900 on your credit cards, that's not a lot of money. But if your limit is $1,000, it's 90% of your limit, which is going to lower your credit scores. So anytime you're going to purchase something big, a mortgage, a car, a student loan, or anything like that, a month or two before you purchase a home or get a big loan, pay your credit cards off a couple of weeks early, which will then reflect in having a lower balance when your credit card company reports to the credit bureaus, which will then give you a higher credit score, which allows me to give you a lower interest rate. Another way you can bring up your credit scores without it costing you any money is by raising the limits of your credit cards. So for argument's sake, if you owe $900 on the credit card and your limit is $1,000, if you ask the credit card company to raise your limit to $2,000, you're not at a 90% utilization anymore. Now you're at a 45% utilization, which will then help you bring up your credit scores and lower your interest rates. You could also use something called an authorized user. If you don't have the best credit scores or you have lower credit scores, if you have a family member or a friend or anyone you know that has a credit card that's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years old, if they add you to that credit card as an authorized user, of course, make sure that they make their payments on time, they're not maxed out on the credit cards. Then once they add you as an authorized user to that credit card, it will show up on your credit report as if you had it for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years with on-time payments and a low balance and a high limit, which will give you a good trade line, which will help you bring up your credit scores and help you get a lower interest rate as well. When you're taking out a big loan, you should never have your credit ran by so many people. Now, of course, if you have it ran by 1, 2, 3 mortgage companies within a 30-day period, it counts as one credit pull. When buying a home, I would suggest not taking out new debt before you run your credit. Why? Because when you run your credit, it doesn't really affect your credit score so much. But when the new debt shows up on your credit report, it will lower your credit scores for a couple of months until you show the ability to pay on time and that you're responsible with the new debt. Once you show you're responsible with the new debt, your credit scores will go up. But when you're looking to purchase a home or get a car or get a big loan for something, that's the time you want your credit scores to be at its highest. So try not to do anything a month or two before making a big purchase. So the key takeaway here is to improve your credit before you apply and to protect it until you close. So let's talk about what it takes to qualify for a mortgage. It's easy to remember by remembering the CIA. C stands for credit, I stands for income, A stands for assets. Credit scores are going to determine, one, if you qualify for a mortgage and which program you're going to qualify for and what interest rates you're going to get. Your income is going to determine how much of a loan you can get. The debt to income ratio is going to be one of the biggest factors on how much you could borrow. The A is the assets. That's the money you have for the down payment and the closing costs. If you are using the down payment assistance or the VA loan, then the down payment will reflect that. So debt to income ratio, let's talk about it. It's going to be one of the biggest factors on what you can qualify for a loan. The banks look at your monthly debt divided by your monthly income, which is your DTI, your debt to income ratio. So basically what they take is your monthly payments on your credit card, student loans, auto loans, installment loans, and your mortgage, add that together and divide it by your monthly income. So let's move on to employment history and why it matters. The banks are looking at your employment history because they're looking at your trend. They're looking to see your income trend and also your employment trend to see if you're stable with your employment and how your income is being paid. If your income is hourly, commission, bonus, overtime, they'll take an average of your income. If your income is a salary, they basically just take your salary divided by 12. If you receive overtime and bonuses as well, then they'll take the bonus and the overtime or anything you receive on top of it and take an average over the last 2 years. So let's get into the fun stuff, the paperwork. Those are the documents you need to qualify for a mortgage. The basic documents you'll need to start the process is 2 years of tax returns, 2 W-2s, 30 days of pay stubs, 2 forms of ID, and 2 months of bank statements for the accounts that you're using. Now, of course, if you're self-employed or you're retired or you get other means of income, we would need the documentation to back that up as well, and we would request that. So to recap, you need to know your numbers. It's not just about what you're pre-approved for, it's about affordability. So let's talk about pre-qualification and pre-approval. The two biggest differences are a pre-qualification is when a bank speaks with you over the phone and goes over your credit, your income, and your assets. And maybe they run a soft pull. A pre-approval is when they receive the documents, go over everything, and confirm everything is accurate for you. There's also one step above that, which is a pre-commitment. Once we receive your documents, we put your file together, we put it in front of an underwriter, they review the file, and they give us a pre-commitment based off of the numbers that we put in front of them with your purchase price and your taxes. That will help you stand out from all your competition, because when you're putting in an offer to purchase a home, there's 5 or 10 other offers. If we could help you stand out, that will give you a bigger opportunity to get the offer approved and get the home of your dreams. And just in case you're wondering, there are no fees or any cost to you for any of those processes. So when does the mortgage process start? Once you get an approved offer on a home, we start finalizing the application, getting you out your disclosures so you could see everything in black and white, your mortgage payments, your good faith estimate, along with your mortgage payments. Now at that point, we'll order an appraisal. The appraisal will come to the house to determine what the value of your home is based off of recent homes that sold in the area that is comparable to the one you're buying. Now, once that happens, the file goes to an underwriter. The underwriter reviews the file. You get something called a commitment, which is basically a fancy word for an approval. Once you have that approval, your attorney will get us a copy of the title report. You'll pick out an insurance company and gather the final conditions. Once we submit that back to the underwriter, you'll do a final walkthrough of the house so you can make sure the house looks exactly like you saw it the day you fell in love with it. Then the file goes back to the underwriting for final clearance to close. Then you're clear to close, and congratulations, you're a homeowner. Some common mistakes people make once they go into contract on a home is, number one, changing their jobs. Try not to change your employment history when going into a contract on a home. Number two, using the funds that they have in their bank. Number three, start taking out new loans for new cars or furniture or new credit cards. Try to avoid making big changes in your personal life while you're in contract to purchase a home. Keep in mind, every single loan process is completely different. Some helpful post-closing tips. Once you own a home, you start making mortgage payments. There's a couple of ways to help accelerate payments and paying off your mortgage quicker. Number one, making bi-weekly payments, which means you make a payment instead of once a month, you make it every 2 weeks, which will equate to an extra payment a year, which could knock off about 7 years off of your mortgage. Now, there's another way if you trust yourself with money. Instead of taking that money and applying it towards your mortgage, put that money in a CD or bond or something that could accumulate over time. And as that money grows and compounds, you can now then pay off your mortgage even quicker with the extra interest that you received from investing it the right way. So when does refinancing make sense? Eventually, the interest rates will go lower. The interest rates go up, they go down. And when they go down, you could take advantage of the interest rates by refinancing your property, paying off your existing mortgage, and getting into a new 30-year fix, or even paying off your mortgage in a shorter term, since now you're getting a lower interest rates and dropping down your payments. And lastly, make sure to maintain your credit, because eventually when the rates do drop, you need to qualify with your credit, also your income, to take advantage of the lower interest rate.
Thank you, David. I'm sure what you've shared is going to be a real help to our viewers. Now, I'd like to walk them through what I think is most important for them to understand about the home buying process. And for those who make it to the end, I'm going to offer a valuable gift that'll give them even more peace of mind when it's time to purchase their first home. So, we're going to talk about choosing the right agent by way of formal buyer's consultations. Before you look at any homes, the first and most important decision you make is who will represent you. Let me first explain the different roles that agents can take. There are listing agents who only represent the best interest of the seller. There are dual agents who represent the best interest of the seller and, when authorized by the seller, also the buyer. And then there are buyer's agents. Buyer's agents represent only the best interest of the buyer. So this is who you should be choosing. It's the only way to ensure someone is solely focused on your best interest. Unfortunately, a huge percentage of buyers never make that intentional choice, and that's how they end up being represented by a poor choice of agent. Here's what you want to do to intentionally choose your agent. You want to meet with one or more buyer's agents for their buyer's consultation. Listen, a referral can be a great place to start, but remember, people refer agents for all kinds of reasons. It may be their friend, their cousin, their spouse, their neighbor. Just because someone was recommended doesn't mean they're automatically the right fit for you. You still need to vet them yourself, and the buyer's consultation is how you do that. The consultation gives you the opportunity to ask questions and get a feel for the agent. Make sure they truly understand your needs and goals, but most importantly, it's a time for you to evaluate their expertise, strategy, communication style, and professionalism. And most importantly, you want to find out what their commission is. Buyers are now responsible for paying their buyer's agent's commission, unless the seller agrees to pay it. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to shop for homes on Zillow or similar platforms and then make the mistake of clicking on a tour home or contact agent button. Clicking that button is a sure way to have a slew of agents call you and offer to show you a home. You also don't want to call a listing agent to look at a property. That's the seller's agent, not the right agent for you, and it's also how you end up being represented by a dual agent who's going to put the seller's interest first and yours second. In short, scheduling a few buyer consultations, not home viewing, should be the very first step you take. Here are some basic tips on how the search process works best. First, you and your agent should decide upfront who will be actively searching for listings. There's no wrong approach, but it works best when you both agree on the plan. Do you want to be very involved and send your agents the listings you like, or would you prefer your agent do all the searching? Or do you plan for both of you to keep a lookout? Either way, a strong buyer's agent should be checking newly active, coming soon, and back on market properties daily. They should also look at price-reduced properties daily. That's often overlooked by agents. And lastly, I look at newly expired listings because I see them as an opportunity that most buyers never get to explore, but should. If you're planning on actively being involved in the search, you should use the right search platform and avoid Zillow. Online platforms like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com exist to sell your contact information, not to give you the most accurate, up-to-date listing data. A reputable buyer's agent will give you access to their consumer-facing version of the MLS, also known as an IDX search platform. I pay for my IDX specifically so that my buyers have access to a proper, accurate search tool. These systems often allow you to like or save properties you want to see and also automatically notify your agent that you've liked a property. So this keeps your communication about what you like in one place. Bottom line, Zillow is widely used only because buyers don't have access to anything better. Hopefully, the agent you choose does and gives you a better, more accurate way to search. Once you've identified a group of homes you'd like to see, scheduling the showings is the next step. And it's not as simple as let's go look. Behind the scenes, your agent is making sure each property has not just recently accepted an offer. They need to pre-map all the properties to create a logical, efficient route for your showings. They need to select the time slots or request, I should say, the time slots based on multiple factors. Your preferred start and end time, how long you like to spend in each home. It's usually 15 to 45 minutes. And then the drive time between each property. Requesting the showings must be done through each listing agent. And then your realtor has to wait for confirmations from multiple listings, and that sometimes involves a lot of reworking of the entire schedule. What you can do to make the process smoother. Send your list of homes to your agent at least 24 hours in advance. Try to avoid adding or deleting homes once the schedule is built. Tell your agent whether you prefer quick walkthroughs, say 15 minutes, or longer tours up to 3/4 of an hour. And it's very important to be on time to the first appointment, or you risk throwing off the entire day. Understand that late arrivals will require your agent to renegotiate access, and in many cases, the showing could be denied if there are other appointments scheduled behind yours. So most buyers never realize how much planning goes into a showing day until something goes wrong and they miss out on viewing a property. So a little communication up front keeps everything running smoothly. Once the showings are confirmed and the day is mapped out, now comes the fun part, actually touring the homes and evaluating what you're seeing. Every buyer and every buyer's agent approaches a property tour a little differently. That's why it's important to discuss how you prefer to tour the home before you arrive. Would you like your agent to walk you room by room and point out important features, red flags, or opportunities? Or would you rather explore on your own and then discuss everything afterwards? Do you want a quick discussion before going in or a more detailed debrief after? There's no right way. The key is setting expectations up front so the tour is comfortable and productive for you. What's appropriate during a showing and what's not? You may open closets and built-in cabinetry or drawers to see the storage features, and you can look inside appliances that are included in the home, but you should not open any drawers or doors of personal furniture. Take photos or video unless your agent confirms it's allowed, and use the bathroom unless it's an absolute emergency, and only after confirming that the plumbing is working. And please don't touch personal items. If the showing instructions require it, be prepared to remove your shoes or wear booties. This simple courtesy creates a positive impression with the seller, who you could ultimately be trying to buy from. The buyer's agent's role during each showing is to give you the type of tour that you feel will help you most, provide all available information about the property, including anything listed publicly and privately in the MLS, as well as any attached documents like the all-important seller's disclosure, flood report, etc. They should answer your questions or obtain the answers if they're not immediately available. Help you stay focused on the criteria that matter to you so your emotion doesn't lead to a poor decision. Help you compare what you're seeing from one property to the next, and point out any red flags they see that you may have overlooked. Here are a few things I like to do with my buyers after showings and then before making any offers. After each property, I like to debrief. Even if it's just for a few minutes, I'll ask how my buyer would rate that home compared to the ones they've already seen and what they specifically liked or didn't like. That helps prevent the homes from blending together later, and it helps me get even clearer on what matters most to them moving forward. Once you've toured the homes and found the one you truly want to pursue, the next step is crafting a smart, data-based offer. And that's where agent expertise becomes incredibly important. Hopefully you have chosen a buyer's agent who excels at writing strong offers and knows how to structure them so you don't have to pay a penny more than necessary. Okay, now we're getting into some exciting territory, making an offer on a property. When you're ready to make an offer, it's about much more than just the price you're willing to pay. A strong offer is competitive, well-structured, and built to appeal to the seller without putting you at an unnecessary risk. This is where the experience and strategy of a good buyer's agent really matters. First, it's important to understand what counts as an offer. Your agent telling the listing agent, my client wants to offer $500,000, isn't a real offer, and the listing agent is not obligated to present that verbal statement to the seller. A legitimate offer in New Jersey consists of a fully completed New Jersey standard real estate contract, which is about 10 to 12 pages long, additional addendums that are required based on the terms of your offer or the characteristics of the property, and your mortgage pre-approval or conditional approval letter, or in the case of people who are paying all cash or not financing, proof of funds is necessary. All of this is carefully prepared and signed, essentially creating what I call an offer package. Done properly, this typically takes 2 to 3 hours of preparation and communication between you and your buyer's agent. And it's well worth the time because how your offer is structured and presented often determines whether or not you win the home. Before deciding an offer price, as I've mentioned earlier, an experienced agent should conduct a market valuation to determine the property's true value. Sometimes the list price is accurate, other times it's inflated or intentionally low to spark a bidding war. Having your own unbiased, accurate market valuation from your agent is just a smart thing to do. A quick example. In a recent multiple offer situation, one of my buyers won the home below asking price and only $2,500 higher than the next best offer, which saved them $15,000 compared to the offer they initially planned to submit. That's the power of an expert offer strategy. Once you've determined an informed offer price, the next step is structuring the terms, and this is often what separates a winning offer from one that gets passed over. Even in a competitive situation, it's possible to make your offer more attractive to the seller without raising your offer price or waiving important protections. For example, you might agree to waive repair requests for minor or cosmetic items. Note, you just still do all your inspections, but you'll only in this case request the credits or repairs for major issues. You can shorten the inspection and repair request timelines. That shows the seller that you'll move quickly, which is always a good thing for a seller. You can accept a small gap between your contracted price and your lender's appraised value of the property. If this means when the appraisal comes in, if it comes in slightly low, you agree to cover some difference between your offer price and what the house appraises for. Match the seller's preferred closing date instead of assisting on your own is a simple way that doesn't cost you anything. You can also increase your upfront deposit to show you're a serious and well-qualified buyer. For example, in a competitive situation, a seller might favor a buyer that is going to put forth a 10% earnest money or upfront deposit than a buyer who's only putting forth a 3% upfront deposit. And that money doesn't go to the seller immediately. It's held in an escrow account by the attorney, broker, or other designee in the contract until closing. And it's part of your down payment. It's just getting paid earlier, so you're not paying more by making that minor concession. I can't speak for all buyer's agents, but here are a few of the ways I strengthen my clients' offers without increasing their price or giving up critical protections. First of all, I make sure the entire offer package is complete, accurate, and professionally prepared. You'd really be surprised how many agents submit offers with missing paperwork or errors, and those immediately lose credibility. I know this because I'm also a listing agent. I receive many offers on behalf of my sellers, and I've seen it all. I include a clear and respectful offer summary so the listing agent and seller immediately see the strengths of the offer. As I mentioned, the whole package is probably, 25 pages long. They get to see everything clearly up front. I focus on establishing positive rapport with the listing agent from our very first conversation. Listing agents tend to favor offers from buyer's agents who are pleasant, competent, and easy to work with. The ones unlikely to create unnecessary drama during the transaction. In the additional provisional sections of the primary sales contract, and this is the only place we can add written text, I reiterate the key strengths of my buyers, such as they're having a very strong pre-approval or better yet conditional approval already in place, which makes them almost as low risk as a cash buyer. the fact that if they have no home to sell, I'll indicate that there is no home sale contingency. That's very important to a seller. And that they're very flexible on the closing date, deferring to the seller's preferred timeline. Now, when appropriate, I will include with the sales contract an escalation clause. This allows your offer to automatically move slightly higher in price only if another buyer submits a higher competing offer. That way you stay competitive without going in with your highest price. You only go higher if someone else legitimately bids higher. And you would specify in the escalation your maximum limit that you're comfortable with. Not all buyer's agents understand or use escalation clauses, and surprisingly, some listing agents don't accept them. But when they are allowed, they can be a very smart buyer strategy. In a multiple offer situation, all of these small but strategic steps can make a difference and often determine who wins the property. One of my absolute favorite phone calls that I get to make is calling my buyer to tell them their offer has been accepted and to explain to them the next steps, which is the attorney review. Once the seller accepts your offer and both of you sign the offer package, the transaction moves into attorney review. So before we get to this point, you'll have to choose a real estate attorney to represent you. The typical cost is roughly $1,000 to $2,000, and attorney review usually lasts 3 to 5 days, give or take a few days, which I'll explain shortly. So what is attorney review? It's the process where both attorneys review the contract and submit their own addendum suggesting additions, deletions, or clarifications, all to protect your interests. So all parties, including both attorneys, the seller and the buyer, negotiate both attorneys' proposed changes, and once both the buyer and the seller agree and sign, attorney review ends and the contract becomes binding, or that's what you'll be told. However, do note that while your contract is technically or legally speaking binding at that point, deals can still fall apart after attorney review. And it's most commonly during the inspection and repair negotiations. And we'll cover that fully in the next section. I like to talk a little bit about my role during attorney review because some agents simply step back and just wait for the attorneys to do their work and announce that attorney review is over. I don't do that. I monitor the process closely to make sure it is moving at a reasonable, swift pace. If the review seems delayed, I give my buyers first a heads up to contact their attorney to see what might be stalling. They're responding to the other attorney. If necessary, I will step in directly with the seller's agent. And if the situation becomes more dire, I'll even step in and reach out to the seller's attorney. Because while a delay is sometimes as insignificant as one of the attorneys or both of the attorneys and their clients simply being busy, other times it can signal a problem or issue that needs to be addressed quickly. And just to clarify, once attorney review ends, that is not the end of your attorney's involvement. You're getting more for your money than just that brief review. They remain engaged throughout the rest of your transaction. Okay, now we're at the point where you're going to do your due diligence, specifically your inspections. So once you're out of attorney review, a number of things are set in motion, and every party in the transaction now has deliverables they need to complete by certain dates outlined in the contract or attorney review addendums. But your most important deliverable at this stage is your due diligence, specifically inspection of the property. You're given a specific number of calendar days, counting from the day attorney review ends, to complete your inspections and submit a written request to the seller if you want repairs made or a monetary credit at closing so you can make the repairs yourself. Here are the most common inspections buyers typically order: the general home inspection, where a licensed inspector does a comprehensive visual inspection of the structure, roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, mechanicals, and so on. Sometimes they may recommend bringing in additional specialists to check them further, like a structural engineer, an exterminator, or a sewer septic expert for further evaluation. You'll also probably be doing a pest and termite inspection, a radon test, and an exterior tank scan. That's where they check for underground oil tanks or abandoned septic systems. Depending on the property, you might also order specialty inspections. For instance, if there's a fireplace, you might have that a higher level inspection. If there's an in-ground swimming pool, again, the septic system or oil tank, if those are determined in the tank scan, you're going to get someone in to check them out. Make sure if they're no longer operational that they were taken care of properly so that there are no leaks. If you have a well, you're going to get a well water inspection. If it's an older house before 1978, I think you're going to do a lead paint test. So what happens after the inspections? You're going to receive written reports, and especially in the case of the general home inspection, count on it being very long and somewhat overwhelming. That's standard because there's going to be a lot of excess verbiage in there and photos of a lot of the items that they've looked at in the house. So most buyers rely heavily on their attorney to advise them on what they should or shouldn't be requesting from the seller. The buyer and attorney review the inspection reports. The attorney will then submit a written request to the seller for repairs and or monetary credits for the buyer to do repairs after they purchase the home. And the two attorneys negotiate on behalf of their clients until an agreement is reached. At that point, the buyer can accept the inspection outcome and move forward, or cancel the contract without penalty if a reasonable agreement cannot be reached. This is why many deals fall apart after attorney review, not because an inspection was done, but because the parties could not agree on how to resolve the findings. A quick note about how I help my clients. Although the attorney handles the formal inspection negotiation, I offer to review the inspection reports with my buyer first. In my experience, some attorneys unknowingly jeopardize a good deal by asking for too much, while others don't negotiate hard enough when a seller resists legitimate repair requests. By weighing in early, I help my buyer strike the right balance, making sure they get what they deserve without putting the entire deal at risk. Next up, once inspections are resolved, we're going to move into the remaining deliverables and steps to closing, where the buyer, seller, their respective realtors, the attorneys, the buyer's lender, and the title company all have specific tasks and timelines to keep the transaction on track. Okay, so once you get out of the inspection phase, you can breathe a little sigh of relief. That was a major stepping stone to conquer. But it's not over yet. Now, everybody in the transaction still needs to complete their deliverables by the deadlines in the contract. For yourself, the buyer, you need to make sure, if you haven't already, delivered your upfront deposit by the due date. You'll want to make sure you have submitted your full mortgage application and your lender has everything they need to continue processing your loan. And then at that point, you're going to probably start packing and clearing out the house. Towards the end of the transaction period, once the lender has given the clear to close, you're going to get a preliminary settlement statement showing you exactly what closing costs you're paying and what your net outlay or total cash due at closing. You'll need to sign off on that. And then ultimately on the, before the closing, you'll get that final settlement statement to review and sign off on. Once the closing date has been confirmed, you're going to contact all the service providers to the house and let them know that you're moving, and they'll take your name off the billing so that you no longer pay for those services beyond the closing date. Note, I continue tracking every deadline and deliverable for my buyers, but also all of the parties to the transaction, so nothing slips through the cracks and causes delays. This is someplace where buyer's agents differ. Some do a lot of transaction management, some not so much. I think it's very important, and so it ensures that the closing happens on time, or that it happens at all. As you can see on the screen, I have listed all the responsibilities of each party. I'm not going to read them out just for time's sake, because you can see them there yourself. Again, I can't speak to how other agents handle this part of the process, but in my opinion, a great buyer's agent should be proactively managing the entire closing process, not just their own tasks. That means proactively tracking all deliverables and making sure every party meets their deadline so nothing jeopardizes the closing. Okay, so we're at the end, just prior to the closing. You're going to get to do your final walkthrough. You can do it the afternoon before or the morning of the closing. It's your last opportunity to confirm two things: that the property is in the same or better condition as when you made the offer, and that any agreed repairs have been completed properly. What must the seller do before the walkthrough? So they need to remove all personal items, unless there are personal items that you agreed that you wanted them to leave for you or that you have purchased from them. They need to deliver the home in, at a minimum, broom clean condition. They are not required to do a deep cleaning. So that's something you might want to consider having done, paying to have done, or giving yourself the time to do it. Okay, then we get to closing day, and you will review and sign the final settlement statement, sign your loan documents, provide your funds to close. Now, your attorney or title agent will give you the exact instructions beforehand. You might be wiring that, or you might be bringing a certified bank check, And then lastly, once you're done with all that, you're going to get your keys, and at that point, you officially become the owner of the home. Here's a quick note about the deed and the mortgage. Many buyers assume that the bank holds the deed until the loan is paid off, kind of like when you buy a car. That's what happens, but that's not how it works. The deed is recorded in your name immediately after closing. Once it's recorded by the county, a copy of the recorded deed will be sent to you. The mortgage is required as a lien against the deed, giving the lender the right to the property only if you were default on your loan payments. So yes, you truly own the home on closing day. The lender does not hold your deed. They simply have a lien against it until the loan is paid in full. All right, we are getting close to the end now. So now that you've seen the whole buying process, I want to show you how I personally earn my keep by adding value at every step. Here's a quick on-screen summary of the kind of support I bring to my buyer clients. So when you meet with agents, make sure they can clearly show you this level of support. If they can't, they probably aren't the best agent for you. And before we do wrap things up, I want to offer you a special offer just for today's viewers, something valuable that could give you even more peace of mind with your new home. I'll share the details of that in just a moment. Okay, everyone, you're about ready to graduate. In all seriousness, I give each of you a lot of credit for taking the time to get educated before jumping in. The fact that you've watched the entire class puts you ahead of the curve, and that already speaks to the kind of smart homeowner you're going to be. We hope that you now see that while the home buying process is complex and involves a lot of people, if you intentionally choose the right people to represent your interests, they can ensure that your part of the process feels very seamless and ends up in a highly successful purchase. If you're ready to move forward or have some questions, please feel free to reach out. With one call, you can have access to both me and David, so you're supported on the real estate and the financing sides right from the start. And as I promised, I have a special gift for everyone watching today. When you choose me as your buyer's agent, you'll receive a free 1-year America's Preferred Home Warranty, which covers plumbing, electrical, appliances, cooling, and heating. That's a $500 value designed to give you peace of mind and protect you from unexpected costs in your first year of home ownership. Consider this my closing gift to you. I can send you the literature about the offer. Feel free to request it. Thank you again for watching, and a special thank you to David for sharing his expertise as well. We both look forward to helping you make a confident, successful home purchase.